Mortal Kombat reboot just hit HBO Max and served up a bunch of fatalities at the box office this weekend as well, scoring a global haul, I believe what it was, $50 million, over $50 million. So it's good to see those box office numbers start climbing. And Mortal Kombat was one of those films that you would have a fun time watching on the big screen, especially if you're a fan of the video game or even the 1990s classic film. I did recently do a review for that. If you are interested, check the link above my head or check the show notes down below. Anyway, guys, Mortal Kombat, this new latest installment, is directed by a director named Steve McQuoid. Don't know if I pronounced that right, but this is apparently his very first film he's ever directed, and I love seeing fresh takes on film by newer directors. We saw a bunch of that in the Oscars race. Plus, last year there was a lot of great new directors sharing their voices in film, and this is kind of an interesting first project for a guy because it's a big blockbuster type of film. It's a property that people really do care for and appreciate and love. And even if the 90s classic movies with Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat Annihilation, there are some nostalgic feels to have those. There is a following for those movies and these characters. And as a person who may not be like fully versed in the lore, the film, or the lore or the mythology of these characters and this world, it's still fun to journey to the outer world and experience this tournament. And unfortunately, that's one of the things I didn't care for the film. It's kind of a ballsy move that the film didn't have a Mortal Kombat tournament. They mention it several times in this movie, but they didn't show it, which is kind of odd for me to say. So let's take a look at what the film is all about. I'm reading the description off of Letterboxd right now. So, washed-up MMA fighter Cole Young, unaware of his heritage and haunted by Emperor Shang Tsung's best warrior, Sub-Zero, seeks out and trains with Earth's greatest champions as he prepares to stand against the enemies of Outworld in a high-stakes battle for the universe. So, pretty straightforward plot. There's some haunting. There's some kind of maybe some revenge in there. There's some takes, but we're not really caring too much about the story here. This is kind of when you're watching this, you're watching for the gore, watching for some of the fatalities, the fight sequences are what you're really paying your money for. And I gotta say, these fight sequences are a lot of fun. There was really cool moments that they actually do callbacks to the video game sequences with these really cool and interesting fatalities. That is what this movie is really good at. These fight sequences. I feel like they're very unique, and I feel like there's some really cool gore freak out stuff and blood stuff that happens in there. If you're a big fan of any of that bloody messy violence, then you might have a lot of fun with this film. And I definitely think this film kind of knocked out those sequences. That second half of the film is by far, I will also say, is better than the first half. The first half was really slow because you're setting up a ton of new characters. Big air quotes on new characters because we had seen them before, but you're introducing some new characters to an audience who may not be familiar with them. So you're introducing those, and then you kind of start developing the plot of the movie and the journey of these characters. The second half of the film is where this film really is clicking on all cylinders. It is a big bloody mess of some action, and it's a lot of fun. What I would have to say is that the performances here, nothing really stood out. I think the only guy that I really enjoyed, and I'll give a special shout out to this guy, is the guy who played Kano. His name is Josh Lawson, and I've seen him a couple times in a couple films, and I thought he was really good. A lot of the witty dialogue that he brought to this made me really love Kano in this movie. And it was fun to see where his character started from and where he ended. Maybe a little predictable what happens with that character, but needless to say, I enjoyed the heck out of Kano when he was on screen, and I wanted to see more of him, quite frankly. I had seen Josh Lawson in movies like Bombshell, Anchorman 2, and The Campaign. He didn't really stand out on those films too much, but I thought he was a big standout for this film for sure. Some of my negatives and gripes about the movie is that first half definitely takes a little bit to get going. It starts off with a plot. It starts off with some backstory to the Sub-Zero character and a Scorpion as well. And to be honest, those are the two most iconic characters. And I didn't really find that to be as interesting as it should have been. it wasn't like it's horrible by any means, but I kind of just wanted to jump into this tournament because I thought the movie initially was going to go in a different direction. But this is the way the film did take us. It didn't necessarily bore me. It just I wanted to get hooked with some more fight sequences, some action right out of the gate that was more entertaining than what they actually gave us. Not a huge gripe on it because I did kind of like the payoff near the end. So it does pay it off. The beginning does pay off near the end of it. But I guess it is what it is for that sequences. Some of the other things I kind of frustrated me about the movie was the script was kind of really all over the place, kind of a mess. The story wasn't that great, but I think you're not really paying for the story in this. You're paying for those action sequences and the violence that this franchise is known for. Especially if you're a fan of the video game, you do know that the violence is kind of what you're playing the games for. You're playing to see how you can have those fatalities work out on your other people you're playing against. And the movie does deliver on that if you're looking for that. But if you're looking for a solid story with some good character development, this isn't the film for you. I also thought that the performance of Louis Tan, who played Cole Young, I'm not a huge fan of that performance, and he's probably the most bland version of any character in this. And that's not necessarily probably him. It's probably again, goes back to the script. But if you can't write solid characters, it's really hard for the actor to portray something interesting through a bad script. And if I'm being completely honest, my favorite characters in the Mortal Kombat franchise are Sub-Zero and Scorpion. And I felt like Sub-Zero was pretty dang cool up to a certain point, and then I was like, okay. And then Scorpion wasn't as what I was expecting him to be as well, and I wish they would develop and put those characters and develop them a little bit better than they actually were given on screen in the long run. That's a little frustrating to me because they are the most iconic characters, and they really did get nothing to do as much as I wanted. They set up Sub-Zero as the main villain here, but I think they could have done a little bit more to give him something more to do. Also, some fan favorites like Johnny Cage didn't appear in this movie at all, so that was a little bit frustrating as well. But there is a tease for a future sequel, so hopefully we do get some of those because I think there's a lot you can do with this franchise, and at least it's a good stepping stone film. It's not a perfect film by any means, especially for a start of a franchise, but I think that the violence and the action sequences alone do kind of give it a chance for possible sequels in the future. Overall, on the almost sideways rating scale, I'm probably going to lean a little more favorable than other people, but I'm probably going to give it a 2.5 out of 4 stars. I'm not going into this movie expecting anything other than great fight sequences and some awesome violence. And that's what I got with this movie. So I came out satisfied, and I'm willing to actually buy this on Blu-ray or at 4K when the movie does come out and rewatch this one. I actually had a lot of fun. I'm a fan of that 1995 Mortal Kombat movie as well. Not so much Annihilation, but this one I'm going to give a pretty favorable rating for it because I did have some fun, and sometimes the F word, fun, is the most important thing when you're watching films sometimes. So anyway, that's my quick takes on Mortal Kombat 2021 on HBO Max. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys thought about the movie. And also check out our podcast streaming on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, and Stitcher for more movie-related conversations as well. Anyway, until next time, I'll see you later.